too intrusive, could we just go around and say who we are? So who's the big people? Raise your hand. All right, so that's it. We're not asking you. So there you are. So why don't we start in the front row?
I'm Steve Garris, National Waste and Recycling Association.
Andy Moss of Waste Connections.
Ron Bergamini, Action Party. Thomas Toscano from Mr. Tea Party.
Jean Chiariccio and Associates representing Action Party.
Greg Lettieri, Recycle Track Systems.
Amy Martin, Recycle Track Systems.
Annabelle Stewart, Align.
Mark DeComply, Raw Compost.
I couldn't hear you.
Shakira, Roll Call.
Justin Bland, Parking Sanitation.
How German, yes, no more junk.
I'm sorry.
No more junk.
Okay. So why don't we do this? I'll read my remarks. We have a few people that want to speak. Obviously, the rate cap is the topic, and the big people, maybe not those people, will stay around afterwards because we'd actually like to speak to some of the other people about other issues, and obviously if you have issues to talk about. But as I said, obviously the reason we're here now is the rate cap. So good morning, my name is Dan Brownell. I'm the Commissioner and Chair of the New York City Business Integrity Commission, otherwise known as BIC. Thanks for attending today's meeting. BIC is conducting this hearing as required under the rules of the City of New York. BIC must hold a public hearing every odd year before October 31st regarding the maximum rates charged by the private trade waste carters for the collection, removal, and disposal of trade waste, also known as the rate cap. BIC published the hearing notice in the City Record on September 18, 2017. We also disseminated a copy of the notice via email to all New York City local elected officials, all 59 community board managers, several media organizations in the city, and other interested parties. Lastly, we made available a copy of the hearing notice on BIC's website. Today's hearing gives the interested parties, including trade waste carters and the customers they service, an opportunity to present their positions on the rate cap so that the Commission may gain a better understanding of the current state of the commercial trade waste industry and how the current rate cap impacts the industry. The New York City rules state some of the factors that BIC may consider when evaluating the rate cap, which include the Producer Price Index, commonly referred to as the PPI, available data on the trade waste industry, and any other factors that may be relevant to assessing a fair and reasonable return to licenses and the protection of customers from unreasonable charges. The rules also state that the proponents of a change in the rate cap must, quote, bear the burden of demonstrating on an industry-wide basis that existing rates are inconsistent with the standards for maximum rates, end of quote. Thus, we are here to listen and to you with regard to this issue. We hope that your statements will be supported by studies and other forms of empirical data. The first issue at hand is the viability of the current rate cap, which was put in place in 2016. According to the data reported by the licensed carters in the quarterly customer register, the majority of the commercial customers are charged well below the current rate cap, and in fact, a large majority are still charging customers below the current 2016 rate cap, and I realize that's not the only issue here. The Commission is also aware of the arguments raised by the private carters that a healthy and robust competitive industry does not need to be artificially controlled via a rate cap, and that the private carters are not charging their commercial customers at the rate cap. The trade waste hauling industry is experiencing changes now and will continue to do so in the coming years. Any decision with respect to the rate cap must take into account these changes. For example, some of the recent changes affecting the industry are the new commercial recycling rules and the new commercial organic collection rules. Additionally, we understand that some private carters are already making capital investments to their fleets in order to comply with the vehicle emission law, which goes into effect the beginning of 2020. Taken together, these new standards will require private trade waste carters and their customers to work together to meet the city's sustainability goals. This hearing is not the end of the fact-gathering process on this issue. We will continue to have more discussions with interested parties after this hearing. We look forward to continuing to work with the industry through the Trade Waste Advisory Board. After we have gathered all pertinent information, we will then be in a position to decide how to adjust the rate cap, if at all. A court reporter is present today, and we will record the hearing. The hearing is also being video recorded. You may present an oral statement or submit written comments. Vic will carefully consider all the comments it receives today at the hearing and all written comments it receives until November 18 of 2017. We will begin calling those who wish to speak this morning in the order in which you have signed in. Please state your full name and the company or organization that you represent. Is there anybody that would like to speak that is sort of on a time constraint? We'll start with that. We don't have that many speakers. I don't think it's going to take that long. Otherwise, I'll just go based on the order in which people signed in. Sally's first.
The first speaker is Thomas Toscano for Mr. T. Carney.
So what we would ask is if you would speak here. My suggestion is speak a little slower than you think you should, because that way it's amplified and it's just easier to understand. All right? So come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I am Thomas N. Toscano, currently the CFO and soon-to-be CEO of Mr. T. Carney Corp. I'm a licensed attorney, and I'm very familiar with the regulations of the carting industry. As has been stated at the prior rate cap hearings and this one, the New York City market for waste and recycling services is nearly perfectly competitive. Customers can and do solicit many bids and change carters freely. The days of no customer choice due to the cartels are long gone and will not return unless franchising is implemented. In fact, the BIC has told the industry that a very small percentage of the customers are even at the rate cap. There is no better argument than that for its elimination. I know the next question, and that is why do we need a raise if many customers are not even at the rate cap? The reasons are twofold. First, New York City is continuing to increase regulations and recycling requirements imposed on the carters. These regulations include requiring all trucks to be 2007 emission compliant by 2020. This regulation itself cost my company over $8 million, most of them borrowed in truck numbers. Second, the recycling regulations require us to put more trucks on the road. Simultaneously, the recycling commodity prices that we receive have recently collapsed, causing a significant loss in revenue for the very same commodities we are being asked to recycle. This drop in prices was partially caused by and exacerbated by the requirement that we collect glass, which no one in this region seems to have an outlet for. In short, the carters are being asked to collect glass, have it contaminate other commodities, which reduces their sale price, reduce the life of the recycling equipment that separates the commodities for sale, again, increasing costs, just to throw it out at the end of the process, because again, no one in this region seems to want it. In addition, the city is now ramping up its organic recycling requirements, necessitating further investments by the carters. Everything I just described to you has not had its full economic impact yet, as most of these developments are recent. While all of these new regulations are being implemented and carters are being asked to invest, the city is strongly pushing effort to franchise the industry. A company that invests to comply with these regulations may lose its entire business if a franchise plan is adopted. To balance the equities in what the city is asking, these companies need to be given the opportunity to recoup the investments that are due to these new requirements. History shows us that it is highly unlikely that this discussion on the rate cap will be held again for the next 2 years. Carters need maximum flexibility in pricing to cover the regulatory and commodity contingencies they they will likely face over the next 2 years. Ideally, the rate cap should be eliminated. Alternatively, it should be raised by more than 20%. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Steve Shingaris from the New York City NWRA chapter.
Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, members of the staff and guests. My name is Steve Shingaris. I'm the New York City chapter director for the National Waste and Recycling Association. We work with the private carting companies, transfer station, landfills, et cetera, that manage and help take care of the city's waste. What I'd like to do is, say that, just a little bit of the overview. I've got 4 key points. We have written testimony that we've already submitted for the record. We have hardworking men and women in this industry. There has to be a face put on this. This is a rate cap that supports an industry that does a vital service. We serve upwards of 200,000 commercial entities in the city, and it takes a lot of effort to keep the trucks running, the employees paid, and the companies in business tomorrow to be of service, to bring on new equipment and new programs to benefit the marketplace and to fulfill the directives of the Department of Sanitation and the City Council as it comes to solid, and the BIC as it comes to solid waste in the city and recycling. Like I mentioned, we have 4 key points. As my predecessor before me and as the association has staked out the position over time, it's boilerplate for us now. We encourage for the rate cap removal entirely. We believe it's a system that was put in place many years ago. It's unnecessary today. The most important thing in the marketplace today is the fitness and integrity held by the industry because of the licensing and the background check that the BIC does and the oversight of the market. When you have good companies doing good things in the marketplace, you don't have to worry about price gouging and other things like that. So, we believe and I think even some of the former commissioners and others who have done work in this space recognizes that the rate cap is outlived its usefulness. So we've encouraged that to go away. Now, it's ironic because as much as we talk about the rate cap going away, I'm now going to offer a new idea for the commission to think about, and then we're going to go on to make another case which is interesting as well. But the new idea for this testimony is the concept that the commission install a minimum rate. The premise of, first off, as we've said, we're not keen on any kind of economic regulation of the marketplace. But if the situation in the city is such that we cannot move away from it, we would think that the commission should pay some attention to installing a minimum rate. And the reason for this is because we're very concerned about not being able to recoup the basic costs of running a business in the city today. There are so many pressures going on today between the legislative, the regulatory, and in the marketplace that we're not sure that all the costs are fully being accounted for when we're servicing the customer. We're not sure all the licensees are fully accounting for the costs of servicing the customers. And if they're not properly charging for these services at a minimum rate, then they're not able to properly capitalize their business and reinvest in their business to be here tomorrow. And that's a little bit of the conflict because we know a lot of the companies are doing that, and we're very we're very concerned about this impact of the charging below what is a minimally reasonable number to provide service in the city. So, and as much as we've made the case to remove the rate cap, and we've added another wrinkle to install a minimum rate that you can't charge below for the collection of trade waste, we're now going to discuss a rate cap bump. We're going to put on the table a request for a 20% increase. The rationale for this is that we are at a very capital-intensive stage of change with bringing on new trucks that to meet the new standards of the emissions rules of the city. And whether we're buying new trucks or whether we're retrofitting existing inventory, those are all adding costs. And they're pushing the envelope about our ability to pay for it. The other thing that fits into this general request for the 20% bump is what's mentioned by other speakers and will be mentioned by others to follow. The new recycling and organics initiatives. We're already putting more trucks on the road to meet the harmonization requirements of the regulations. And we not only have the 400 or so accounts, 300 accounts that are currently being collected in organics, but we have every expectation to believe that the Department of Sanitation is going to push that envelope further in the coming months. So we're going to have to provide more of that service to more of our customers. So we believe those two things alone are enough between the truck and the capital expenditures and then the additional requirements of the licensees to work with our customers. Those two alone justify the bump. But we also want to make sure we pointed out in the testimony, there's a whole list of boilerplate costs between tolls, gas, labor, helpers, drivers, mechanics, across the board. They always seem to be going up, and we would encourage the commission to pay attention to those kinds of costs as they go into considering a rate bump for the group. The other one that we wanted to mention today, and we'll call it by name, the Chinese National Sword Program. It's a recycling initiative. It's a new Chinese initiative that is going to create new heightened import restrictions on our export of recyclables to that important market. And it challenges our whole scheme in how we view our management of recyclables. It's not, there's two questions here. We're struggling with the concern of making our recyclables clean enough to meet these really restrictive standards. And then if we can't do that, we're faced with the dilemma of what are we going to do if we can't meet that standard. And that, it spawns all kinds of unknowns and makes a business logician very uncomfortable. We don't know if these materials are going to have to be further expense to clean them up more to meet the standard. We don't know if we're going to have to subsidize the creation of new markets. We don't know how much more it's going to cost to work with our customers and the generators to make sure that they produce quality recyclables that we can process. We don't know the cost of the equipment that it's going to take to clean up the recyclables to get them to these new standards. And then, of course, the worst of all thoughts, if we can't move these recyclables at all, how do we manage them? Will we have to dispose of them? So we're working very hard to understand the China sword and the new Chinese recyclables import restrictions, intensely now. We're gearing up right now. The Chinese are very involved in a domestic political development, but the next threshold for us is the issuance of import licenses. And no one doubts that they're going to be issued. We just don't know the quantity and how many will be issued. And we're going to be monitoring that very closely for the weeks to come. And as the import policy kicks in full bore on January 1st of next year, anything goes. We're very concerned as an industry. So, we appreciate the Commission's biannual review of the rate cap. We hope the Commission will take into account all these unknowns and see to it that the industry can get this 20% rate cap increase so that we can continue to work and improve our services to our citizens, our customers in the city of New York. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The next speaker is Ron Bergamini from Action Carding.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ron Bergamini. I am the CEO of the Action Environmental Group. That's the parent company to Action Carding here in New York. It's the city's largest private hauler. I'm very proud to be part of this industry that performs such a vital service. There are many professionals, I could assure you, in this industry that care deeply about the service that they provide. From the driver to the board member. And this commitment and dedication is critical to meet the growing complexity of the industry, and it does get more complex. Today, competition is thriving, and the customer has more choices than ever, as alluded to. Accordingly, there is no need for a rate cap. The City of New York, particularly the Business Integrity Commission, frankly should take a bow. It deserves a lot of the credit for where the industry is now. The rate cap is a reasonable concept at one point. I I see that, I think most do. However, that time has passed. I've testified at a handful of these proceedings over the years. Today is different, in my view, because of the change we're seeing in the last couple of years and we're about to see in the next few, which is why the repeal of the rate cap is timely. But think about this. Starting 2 years ago and moving forward over the next 2 years at least, we're facing unprecedented challenges, as was alluded to, on what accountants like to call CapEx. And that is buying more collection vehicles and equipment. A garbage truck today costs in excess of $300,000. And it costs that much because the trucks are better and we want them better. We add a lot of equipment to them. We add better safety, and in fact, the city, rightly so, is imposing these higher emission standards. These rules are well-intentioned, but they're putting a major financial constraint on the industry. Big, small companies, doesn't matter. We've always supported these rules. When they were in the legislature, we supported them. In fact, we think they should apply to all trucks. But the challenge is someone has to pay for this. Collectively, we have to pay for this. You cannot ask companies to adapt stricter environmental standards and not pass on a cost. I think customers understand that. I think residents understand that. Think of the cars that we drive. Fuel has always gotten better. The last 20 years, it keeps getting better, and we pay more for them. That analogy works here. The difference is we're required to get rid of old trucks. We don't just get to choose to and have them fade off. And as a consequence of that, our company, our CapEx costs will be 70% higher last year, this year, and next year. To give that a little context, over 50% of our earnings goes back to CapEx. That's not sustainable. Our industry should be about 30%, even that's high, but now we're well over 50%. City has passed new commercial recycling laws, laudable goals. We've always supported them. But the cost of recycling is often more. In today's market, it's considerably more, as I think Tom and Steve both alluded to. The results of this new law, we have to put more trucks on the road. Putting aside the environmental irony there, these trucks require more drivers, helpers, mechanics. We pay people middle-class wage. The industry pays middle-class wage. We want to continue to do that, and we don't want to be handcuffed as to what we can pay those folks. When you're forced to look for people that aren't the quality you want, performance and safety suffer. The new and growing organics recycling program also imposes additional costs. According to the Citizen Budget Committee, which, full disclosure, I'm a trustee, but I have nothing to do, or very little to do with the report, can we have our cake and composted too? Done February 2016. The city will spend on residential composting $177 to $251 million annually. Surely, we're going to spend more money as well. To be clear, I'm not advocating against the organics program. Not at all. It's worthwhile. I'm saying you cannot compost and aggregate. Someone has to pay for it. And you hear a lot about there's not enough composting infrastructure in the city. Without flexibility in pricing, I think it's unlikely that you're going to get that. So public officials, elected officials have been talking about great change in the industry. I see that. I don't see an industry where that's not happening. There's breathtaking technological change everywhere. This industry is embracing that. Onboard computing, cameras in trucks. These are good things. Safety committee that I'm lucky enough to be on, we're talking about these things. We want these. They cost more money. It results in better service and safer roads for New York State. So my suggestion is to keep regulating the industry smartly, as I think has been done. The rate cap is not needed. The alternative, it should be substantially increased. We all want top-notch, environmentally sustainable equipment, better service, safer working conditions. Allow us to provide this. This is a world-class city. My personal favorite city, notwithstanding the traffic I was in to get here today. So help us. The industry has grown tremendously. It's full of professionals. We want to provide better service. It's just going to cost more money.
Thank you, Ron. The next speaker is Andy Moss from Waste Connections.
Morning. Thank you for the opportunity to appear here today. I'm Andrew Moss with Waste Connections. Waste Connections is the only New York Stock Exchange listed public company that collects garbage and recyclables in New York City. We are the third largest solid waste management company in North America. We operate in 39 states, 5 provinces in Canada. In not one of these North American jurisdictions, be it state, province, county, city, town, village, is a rate we charge a customer in any way in an open market system limited by a governmental agency. In all these non-franchise markets, vigorous competition between corporations creates the natural incentive to provide customers with high-quality service at an affordable rate. If someone does not like the service we provide or the price we charge, they can simply look for another service provider. Market forces drive customer and company behavior. The rate cap has 2 main distorting effects. As everyone is aware, it costs money to pay our workers and buy our trucks. It's not a secret that this money comes from our customers who pay for our service. If one customer's price is limited by regulation as to how much can be charged, another customer's price may then be distorted to help subsidize that capped customer. The other distorting effect is recycling. Excluding what you've heard about China today, historically, recycled goods have more value than garbage. If we were allowed to charge market rates for garbage, there would be a natural incentive to recycle more. And recovery rates for recycled items would rise as a consequence. There are other aspects of the rate cap that impact our ability to provide specialized customer service. For instance, we cannot charge for specialized service such as weekend or holiday collection. And while the customer cannot be billed for these extra days, we still pay our workers double or triple time their hourly rate. And if a customer requires us to go into their building to bring the garbage out to the curb, we cannot charge for that extra service. This hard rate cap stifles innovation and promotes marketplace efficiencies. A customer cannot be charged extra for a paper rather than emailed invoice, which is a practice of many other industries. A customer also cannot be charged extra for sending a hand collector to receive his or her payment. Finally, the rate cap does not allow for line item charges, such as fuel surcharges, that other transportation industries charge their customers. As an industry, we're already required to have our invoices approved by the Commission. The answer should be to let us line item all our services and let the customer decide what they need and what they want to pay for. Disclosure and flexibility is the answer, not a hard rate cap. As you've also heard, there are a number of other operating costs that we experience. We provide good paying jobs for our hardworking union employees. Their wages, as per our collective bargaining agreement, have increased 4.02% in the last 2 years. Along with good wages, we provide medical, dental, vision, life, and disability insurance. For our non-union employees, medical insurance is scheduled to increase by 15% in 2018. And for our union employees, our welfare fund contributions have increased by 5% from 2015 to 2016, and an additional 22.5% for the period from 2016 to 2017. Our pension fund contributions have also increased. All in all, our union benefits increased 7.74% over the 2-year period since the last increase. As Steve Shangaris had mentioned, tolls, postage, other expenses, day-to-day operations have gone up. But as you've heard here today, trucks, capital costs, the need to put the trucks on the road The cost of a 32-yard rear load packer has increased as well over the last 2 years. We are paying over $370,000 for a new packer truck in 2017. As we've stated on our company website and at BIC safety symposiums, for Waste Connections, safety is our #1 corporate value. That is why in every new truck we purchase, we add additional safety items, features that cost more than a simple garbage truck. And as Ron mentioned, we think every licensed carter should have on their equipment as well. Our trucks are mounted with high-intensity lighting packages, side guards, quick tip automated loading systems, which save on the wear and tear of our workers. And while we believe these safety investments and the training and their usage are vital in what we know is a dangerous, very dangerous occupation, there's only one way to pay for these improvements, and that is through the rates we charge our customers. And as you've also heard today, regulatory compliance, Local Law 145, as the Commission is aware, requires 2007 emission standards for all commercial waste vehicles by 2020 and has resulted in accelerated capital investment for our company and all companies, I would imagine, to meet this mandate. So at a cost of over $370,000 per truck, I'm just going to run through a little math here. If a company is operating, so a company, when it puts a truck on the road, has to pay wages, fuel, insurance, disposal, and after all those expenses are paid, what's left is your cash flow, it's your EBITDA number, it's your earnings before interest payments, depreciation, taxes, amortization. For a healthy company, that's making 15%, some are making 10%. So for $370,000, if you're at 10%, you've got to earn $3.7 million in revenue to pay for that new truck. If you're doing 15%, it's $2.5 million in gross sales. That's and again, that's all for equipment. And again, these expenses are that's a tremendous amount of capital investment that's going on to meet these emission mandates. That's a lot of new revenue that has to be generated to pay for these trucks. There's no other way to do it. The other regulatory increases as well, that the recycling regulations, we've added one recycling route, we're going to have to add a second one. Again, these recycling routes, they are expenses without associated revenue, and that's more, again, you can multiply, you can just add a zero to the expense at the end is how much revenue you need to recoup those expenses. If you're doing 10% on $400,000, you need to do $4 million in revenue to get back to where you were. A lot has changed in the city. Vision Zero has lowered the speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour. That's a 20% reduction. While we endorse Vision Zero's goals of reducing traffic deaths to zero, speed reduction has meant an increase in the time trucks spend on their routes collecting garbage, additional bike lanes. Traffic at night is now, traditionally garbage trucks go out at night because there was less traffic. Now it's just as crowded at night as it is during the daytime. So everything has led to increased safety awareness, longer routes, increased costs, again, without associated revenue to go with it. So organic collection, again, is looking at, there's a hearing later this month on organic collection's potential to be expanded. But due to its heavy weight, organic waste collection is an expensive service. It should either have a separate rate or not be regulated at all. As the Commission is aware, we're not allowed to charge for specialized containers that must be provided for the service. Compost is collected in either a 64 or 35-gallon toter, which costs approximately $100 per unit and only have a 2-year life expectancy. At 200 pounds a toter, the maximum we can charge by weight is $24.76. Organic collection requires specialized trucks that cannot be used for regular waste or recycling collection due to the material's high moisture content. Furthermore, because organic stops are so scattered and specialized, route density that's ordinarily found in garbage and recycling routes cannot be realized. When these factors are combined with high disposal and operating costs, there's little to no incentive to expand the service beyond what is otherwise mandated. We only offer this service as an add-on for customers that request it as part of their overall service. For us, as things stand today, it is not a market we are looking to grow. I did not mention this, but 35% of our customers are at the rate cap. So for us, we believe it is a substantial number. These customers, frankly, have no incentive to produce less garbage since they can't be charged an additional fee. If the rate is allowed to increase, they may decide to become more diligent about recycling. Of course, they're always free to seek another carter to serve them at a lower cost. The result is a more efficient marketplace. As my testimony has hopefully shown, not only has our operating costs risen, but there's a dramatic need to spend money on new equipment. There's only one way to pay for this equipment, and that's through what the customer pays to us. It's time for the rate cap either to be eliminated or substantially increased. I'm happy to provide the Commission with any documentation I've discussed here today. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Andy. Our next speaker is Vandra from Bakashi. And Vandra, did you bring any written testimony? All right.
I'm going to
We'll have to take it from
I'm going to, I'll send you a hot copy. Hi. So my name is Vandra, and I have a small compost collection service. You may remember I started about 7 or 8 years ago, and started in the home, as a household collection. But I developed actually through the sort of co-working spaces. They were the first sort of small business to come on and take my services. So in a way, my business has grown to the providing a service to the kitchenettes in offices. So I try very hard, and I don't service any restaurants or any of the, when I think of the traditional composting or trash routes that you order. I just want to sort of make that disclaimer. However, it is, my testimony is really quite short, really, and it has to do with the rate hikes, and I sort of support lifting it. Actually, I think it should be lifted. But my particular reading of this section 502 has to do with the third part. Rate 1 is $18, rate 2 is $12, and rate 3 is exempt. So among the exempt wastes are, grease and the C&D and da-da-da. And so what I would like to propose is that organics be considered as one of the exempt waste lines, so that it in fact gives us a space to do the sort of necessary piloting and research and alternatives to handling the organics world. And I personally think that we want to find more small, medium and community-based composting initiatives. By the way, I do all my composting at Marine Park Golf Course at the end of Flatbush Avenue. Over the years, they've allowed me to sort of grow my composting station. So if you want to come out and take a round of golf. You can come and have another look at my composting here as well. And so anyway, I really want to urge us to be thinking about other ways of managing locally our compost collections. And I'm also really keen, and I've been speaking to other small compost players about the need to develop a micro hauling industry to manage that the organics collection. And at the end of the day, I would really like to see the rules and regulations actually allow for some exchange between the micro haulers and the commercial hauling industry. I think that's it.
Thank you, Vandra. At this point, those are all the speakers who had signed up in advance. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak at this time?
Anybody else? So, the whole rate cap is far from a black and white issue. It never has been. There's no question that things have changed in the 20 plus years that it was created. As much data as you can provide us, because we know the PPI alone is not sufficient. As I said in my remarks, between the new emission rules, which of course the industry already has to be geared up and starting to get ready for, full compliance has to be by January of 2020, and of course the recycling rules. There are really lots of things to talk about. We're going to do what we need to do, as I said, provide us with whatever you can provide us, because certainly our objective is not to be unnecessarily and overly burdensome to the industry. Obviously, there's a concern, of course, to be fair to the consumers. Vandra, this whole issue of composting, you're not the only one to suggest that, and that may very well be a great idea. As I said, we'll do what we need to do in the short term with regard to this. I think there's no question, maybe not so much in a hearing format, which is a little bit of a stiff structure, but certainly sort of a roundtable discussion, including Council Member Reynoso, whose committee we report to, and is certainly going to have some ideas and input on this. Certainly, Catherine Garcia from Sanitation and others from Department of Sanitation have their own thoughts and ideas. And I think that's, a productive thing to do, just sort of throwing it out with all the other issues we've got within the next year to really sit down and look at that. As I said, that is somewhat different than what we're going to be doing in the short term. In the short term, as much data as you can provide us, we would really appreciate. So if there's nothing further, I want to close this hearing, sort of the formal aspect of this hearing. Just very quickly, since we have people here from the community and the industry, everybody knows, of course, that as of August 1st, the recycling rules are now, being enforced. Sanitation has done a terrific job, mainly focusing on the generators. We focus on the industry. Just in the last 3 days, we've observed 3 different carting companies that have illegally commingled garbage over here. So we'll be putting together the rest of the evidence and writing up violations for those. But what we need at BIC, since we are small, the thing that we really rely on, and we've gotten some, are tips from people in the community. If you are aware of a carting company that is not following the rules, so if you see a business, properly separating things out and putting them out on the street, and then their carter comes along and just throws it all in the back of the truck, we would really appreciate it if you would let us know. We're going to put it on our website. Sal is the initial person that you'll speak with. You can give us the complaint anonymously if you like. We would prefer that you give us a name and a contact person, because then we can get back to you if we have further questions, we can ask you. I promise you that you will never be exposed to anyone as having been the person that provided the information. Because what we will do with your information is do our own investigation. We're essentially, you are not necessary. If the carder, wants to adjudicate the violation and go to oath, you won't be a witness. We won't need to use your photographs. If you took photographs or your videos, if you took that with your phone, we can do it all ourselves. But otherwise, then what we're stuck with is sort of going out and trolling the streets at night and following carders sort of randomly, and I have a certain sense that a lot of carders are really, doing this properly. And it just really helps us to focus our limited resources on the carders that are not following the rules. And so, and I throw that out to the carders as well. If your people see another company that's not following the rules, provide us with that information. I mean, why should you be, expending the time and energy to do it properly when somebody else is just, I'm not doing it. And that's the only way these rules are going to work. So I implore you to do that. We're all in this together in terms of improving recycling in the city, and as much help as we can get from the public, we appreciate it. And the other advantage of giving us your name and contact information is when we get done with our investigation, we will call you back and tell you the results of our investigation so that you know, because you should know. So again, I throw that out there and really make that request, that as much information as you can provide us. And by the way, with regard to a generator, which sanitation really focuses on, you can either tell us and we'll tell sanitation, or there are on sanitation's websites, there's people there to focus on, because again, while they have more resources, resources are still tight, and so it just helps everybody to do this as efficiently as possible. Is there anything else? Again, this is now, the hearing is over. Is there any other issues that anybody wants to talk about, either now or later? We're always free and happy to talk to people about any concerns or issues you have. Yes?
Is this tip line that you're mentioning available on the big website already, or?
It will be, it is. I think it, okay. Sal is the guy that does the
It's already on the website.
And again, you don't have to tell us your name if you don't want to, but it just, again, we're really good at, first of all, keeping you out of it in terms of being exposed to somebody to do that. And please tell other people that if somebody, says, oh, you should have seen what this Carter did or whatever, please encourage them to give us a call, because it just makes it better. Tom? Well, we put, November 18th is the deadline. Obviously, that's a soft deadline. If somebody needs a couple more days, we're always happy to get more information. We want to, I don't remember, so I think, when did we do it in 2016? By January? Yeah, it was sometime. Yeah, it's other than, I can't really give you a hard and fast date on that. Any other questions or concerns of people? And again, we have a website. We're always happy to even hear complaints about us. That's one of the ways we get better. So anything, we're always happy to do that. All right? Coffee at the next jury. Well, in 2 years, I don't know. We'll put that on the list. All right. Thanks very much, everybody.